lost my father already 2 years earlier. Was taken to a labor camp in Ukraine and killed over there. And my mother with us children, we were refugees already when we were. And so we were lacking food and every time were not easy. By the time we came to Auschwitz, I was separated from everybody except one sister who was older than me. And we were there a couple of months together with daily selections. And I see the Yad Hashem in every selection that I survived. I can't understand it, I cannot explain it, but I can just see Yad Hashem. Because it's impossible to survive. So many things going against me, but I'm here. But, okay. So I was separated then with my sisters, I lost her too. And I survived. And I was saved twice by German Nazis. Real German Nazis. It's like unbelievable, but it's true. At one point, a German soldier locked me in a cellar for a whole day. At night, she left me out, and it turned out that everybody was my age was taken away, and I survived. So it's just one example that in the worst can be also good people. And I survived. I went to Israel straight a year later, and met up with one brother who survived. I didn't know he was alive. And then in Israel, I did many things.
How many children do you have?
6 to 900. And grandchildren, can I have 30? I have great-grandchildren. I would be shocked if I tell you the number. And I have next generation already also. I have 5 generations. I became 5 generations. And everybody shomer Shabbat.
Wow.
Everybody goes with the right path. Baruch Hashem. So I have a lot to be thankful for, and I am.
It's an honor to have you here. Thank you. Okay, tell us who you are.
Well, I'm very unique here. I was born in Poland. I'm a Polish.
Okay.
My mother was also born in Poland.
Oh, okay. I'm so happy to be here.
Where were you born?
Which was with the
Dubietsk. Shamish, that's all I know.
Krenica, Krenz.
I don't know that.
It was like here, Saratoga. It was a very
A resort area.
resort area.
I have no memory.
Not far from Krakow, my father was from Krakow.
We were 6 girls. I'm the youngest. And I was born in 39. And in 41, we escaped to Siberia, which was no picnic. My father died there. He didn't want to eat rape. My mother stayed with 6 girls. And 2 sisters died there. So she was left with 4 girls. Till 1945, when we went to Germany, I don't remember much. And they didn't talk like that. My mother didn't talk. I get information from people.
Okay, I think maybe it would be an idea. Let's do all the survivors first, and then we'll move over to the to the younger generation. So we're coming back around next to Lillian Feinza.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
tell
name
us,
is Lillian Feintuch,
Yes.
and I come from Balmazui Baruch, the same town like Faith's parents. And my father was very, very good friends with your grandfather, Mr. Stomle. He was a watchmaker, and they were both big Talmud Chochems. And we were friends. My parents were friends with your parents. And actually, I remember them. And we were taken to the ghetto. And I remember vividly how my mother, the first thing she packed was a box of candles. And every week, that one candle, she used to cut it in 4, and she would sing the lech every Friday night. And at the end, when we were liberated, we were hiding at the end, And she says, in Yiddish, Kinder, children, look what a big miracle. This the box of candle lasted for us to the last of our liberation. And so this was also another miracle that I survived, that they took four or more children had to come down in the brick factory. Your mother was there too. And we went with the wagons to Auschwitz, and we stood there for 2 days, and we did not know what happened at the time. But we found out that the tracks were bombed, and we couldn't go through. And these wagons were full with children, 4 or more. There were people who had 12 children, your parents also had. And that's how we went back to Vienna, and that's how we survived. Otherwise, at Auschwitz, we would have gone, all these children, we would have been perished, and that was like a big miracle. And also, there was another miracle that when we were on the death march, my mother got sick and she took off her knapsack and sat down, and my younger brother was also a very young boy, like maybe 7 at the time. I had 3 brothers, and she says, "Mommy, look, we're all alone." And my mother could only whisper, "Soon, my child, soon we're gonna go," but she could not. And my oldest brother was like 12 years old, and he went, there was farmers, and he went and he said to the farmer that maybe we could rest up because my mother is sick, and he was very nice. He says, come. So we went into the stable. He put down fresh straws in the corner, and we laid down, and we were able to sleep with the horses, with the cows in the same stable. And I said to myself, oh, I'm at least in a 4-star hotel now. Look how comfortable this is. It's so wonderful. And then the next day, miraculously, my mother got well, and we found another family that was, the father was infested with pus because he was working with murky water. And I was incarcerated for a year. I was a little girl with blonde hair. And I walked away like a half a block, and I saw these gorgeous flowers and bushes and greenery, and I didn't see this for over a year. And I went over there, and I'm admiring, looking, and look, I kept looking up, and all of a sudden I look up, and I see this Nazi running. Oh, and I said, Hashem, this is the end of us. This is it. And then I see he doesn't even run to the adults. He's coming to me. And he's just standing. I said, why don't you take out that gun and get it over with? I'm so scared. Just shoot me already. And then instead of shooting me, he starts to cry. And he said, from the far, I swear that you were my daughter. You look exactly like my daughter. I was a little girl, like 5, 6 years old, with long blonde hair. Very blonde hair, and sorry that I didn't bring the picture to show you at the time, at 5 months before I was incarcerated. And then he said, and then he went over to the adults and he said, what are you doing here? And they told him what happened. We're gonna go right away after the groups. No, don't go there, he said, because those groups will be killed and it's gonna be a terrible thing. Take off your Jewish stars and tell them that you are Hungarian refugees, and when they ask you, what are you doing? Why? He says, just say that the Russians are 10 kilometers from us now, and we are so scared that we had to run away from the Russians. So he said, that's what you should do, and don't go that way, go the opposite. He showed the highest mountain, that's where we should go, that's where we're going to be safe, because the war will be over soon. So, and we found an old lady, she was pretty kind, she gave us the stable to stay in the stable, and she would have given us food, but her daughter, big anti-Semitic, who was very, very scared of the bombs from Vienna, she came there, safe haven in the mountains, and she didn't let her mother, because she suspected that we're not Hungarian, we are Jewish. And then in the morning they would put in these big wooden plank for the pigs And we used to run before the pigs were out to steal the potatoes, those little potatoes they were in there. And then that's where we became liberated.
It's always, I could listen to you for hours. You're so eloquent. To listen to all of you, I'm so grateful. We're going. Yes, go ahead. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for being here.
I think that there were three miracles that I'm alive today. The first one was, as we arrived to Auschwitz, Birkenau, they started separating women and men, young women with children, older people, and the young able bodies. Dr. Mengele was the one who did the selection. He was a doctor, and he knew who was healthy enough to be able to work for the Nazis. They selected me. I went with my mother to the left. The left meant that they are going to be killed, burned in the crematorium. When he pointed his thumb to the right, those were the young, able bodies who would be able to work. As I went with my mother, my two sisters and a sister-in-law were selected to go to the right. After a few minutes, my mother asked me, where are those, my two sisters and sister-in-law? And I said, they went to the other side. We will soon meet each other. She let go of my hand and said, go and run after them. Mommy said, go after them. I ran after them. The last time I went with Dr. Mengele was blinded because nobody from the left crossed over to the right. So this was one of the miracles that Hashem performed, that I am alive. Yeah. After a few weeks, as we arrived, the able bodies, although I was young, I was well built, tall and blonde. They tattooed our arms with numbers, recording the names, and they sent us to work. My sisters and I were assigned to work at the railroad station, where all the luggages from the arrival, the thousands and thousands of people who arrived there, were put. And we started to select. There were different bins and baskets for different items. The silver, like menorahs, candelabras, they put in one place. Candelabras, that's all. Shoes and clothes were put in the other. The Germans were suspicious that the woman did not have any jewelry on them. They asked us to rip open shoulder pads, cufflinks, hems of coats. As a matter of fact, my mother never. Before we went into the ghetto, also sewed in some of her jewelry in shoulder pads and cufflinks. She said, Kinderlach, this we are going to use only for this purpose of survival. And I had to work and look for those Jews that were hidden in the Jews. I'm going to make this whole story short. The second time that Hashem saved my life was when we were the last ones to leave Auschwitz on January the 18th, 1945.
And
There were thousands of us marching from Auschwitz.
My aunt. Come sit.
On the 18th, 1945, I was one of the thousands who was marching out of Auschwitz in a cotton dress, wooden clogs, no food, no drinks, marching day and night. Those who could not walk anymore and just wanted to rest, and they sat down on the snowy, wet road, were shot immediately. The roads, the gardens were full with young, dead women. I said to my sister that I cannot go anymore. I am too tired. They knew what's going to happen to me. So they held me under my arm and dragged me the rest of the way till we arrived in Ravensbrück, another horrible death camp. And we arrived late at night. We just collapsed on the cold, wet floor. When I woke up in the morning, there were dead bodies all around me. Go and survive that. It wasn't the end. From there, they still were able to ship us to different camps. The next one was, okay, right now the name doesn't come to me. We were put into camps. The hunger was so great, they didn't give us to eat anything. One night, I snuck out from the barracks to look for some food in the garbage cans. Any discarded food from the kitchen. Potato peels, anything. God saw me and he came over and he asked what I am doing here out on the camp. I said, I'm so hungry. I just want some food from the garbage cans. He beat me so badly. I fell to the ground, of course, with the pain. After I came to myself, I crawled back to the barracks with my hand and foot. Again, I'm going to make it short. By the time we were liberated, On May the 2nd, 1945, we were skin and bone. We walked like zombies, like dead people. But with Hashem's help, we were liberated and we survived. And I keep asking time and again, the point is, Shalala, where were all those people, the billions of people that let this happen? I even asked, where was the President of the United States? He knew more or less what was going on. Where was the Pope that he allowed that to happen?
Thank you so much.
Hashem,
Thank
I
you.
am here. I'm alive.
I'm so grateful.
you.
Thank you so
It's
much
all
for
a miracle
sharing.
from Hashem.
So we have one, it's my greatest honor, Mrs. Spitzer is a very close friend of our family. Her husband was like a father to my husband. So I feel very, very closely connected. And Mrs. Spitzer's daughter, Remington Reisman, is my every morning converso. We're together at 7:30 every single morning. Mrs. Spitzer, tell us. I don't
Well,
even
I
know.
was a very young child. We escaped to Russia,
They were in Siberia.
Siberia. We went through all the hardships, but not compared to what those people went through. We went through a lot. Hunger, cold, all this was not
How many children were you?
with 3 young kids. And somehow,
I can tell you one thing,
Tell us.
Mommy.
Yeah.
I wish I had the pictures.
Yeah.
My mother was born into a very wealthy family.
Yeah.
Credits, they had hotels, they had
we had some
businesses.
jewelry. I think they hid some jewelry in the clothing and they bribed people with the jewelry. That's how we survived, you know? Here and there. That's the only.
My grandfather was once very, very sick. A doctor didn't want to treat him because he was a Jew.
Yeah.
They gave him some jewelry,
Yeah.
and they once gave jewelry for a piece of bread. But what ultimately happened is, when the Soviets released them from Siberia, they went to Samarkand. And in Samarkand,
What is that?
Uzbekistan, they were in Uzbekistan, and they were penniless refugees at that time. And my grandparents,
Mrs. Horowitz. Mrs. Horowitz?
yeah,
Just wait two.
No, just ask me.
Thank you. Yeah.
my grandparents had 3 beautiful daughters. I have a picture before the war. Starched bows, beautifully dressed.
Each one had her own nanny.
Yeah, they were so wealthy that each child had her own nanny.
Penny was the coolest, was like a Saratoga. Was very.
What was the family name?
Hers. But,
Yeah.
and I want to let my mother take over, but in Uzbekistan, they didn't have food for the children. So what my grandparents did is they took my mother and 2 sisters and put them in a kinderheim.
Yeah, when in kindergarten.
They put them in an orphanage.
At least there we had some food.
They had food.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of my mother
Yeah.
with her teachers and the other children, mostly with shaven heads because of lice, in the kinderheim. And that's, so from wealth, they went to abject poverty,
Right.
and the parents had to give them away and put them in a home for children so that they could have food.
And where were they liberated? What happened?
No, then slowly, at the end of the war, you know, people were able to go back to Poland. We came back to Poland, and there was nothing there for us. We were afraid to go to the where we used to live because the Polacks were very jealous when we came back, and they would take back the property. So we didn't want to go back.
So let me tell you a story like that. My mother and her family slept on the floors in Sarashneres Beis Yaakov. In Krakow, they huddled in Krakow. They were afraid to go back to their town because their neighbors would kill them. My father-in-law went back to his house and he knocked on the door. An orphaned boy, he had lost his parents, his 10 nieces, and everyone. He knocked on the door of his own house, and somebody was living there and said, "If you ever cross this threshold again, I'm going to shoot you." So my grandmother was a young, wealthy woman. She had lost a beautiful big home like this one. And then
We never went back.
they never went back. But she tried to go back once. And she was walking down the street, and there was another wealthy mansion over there, and a person opened the window and said, "Ha, you remember Itzik Schwartz? Well, I am Itzik Schwartz now," and slammed the window. My grandmother was so scared. She didn't go to her own house. She didn't dare to go to her house. She ran back to the train, and they went back to the school where they, eventually they went to Paris, and then they came to the United States. Right. So they lost everything, but Baruch Hashem, they remained alive. Whoever is here had so many miracles and remained alive.
Otherwise, he will not hear.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Because listen to my miracles. They're the only one.
So do we have time
Another 5
to
minutes
listen to the young
about.
children, to the
Because I have
youngsters?
cars waiting and hopefully they will not leave. That's where
Good,
we're
good,
at.
good, I hope not.
I just want to tell that my assistant, Rochi, we work at Nachas, and we work all day with all these lovely ladies, and I would not be able to do any of this without her. She is become their grandchild. I am their child, and she's the grandchild. And all these ladies can testify how much work she puts in a day to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Okay, so, do you want to tell us, Jessica, tell us?
Sure, I'm gonna also be quick, because I know you have cars waiting. My name is Jessica Plotnikov. Thank you, everybody, for organizing this. Your stories are amazing. You're an inspiration. So touching here is that every single person is all like the hands of the chef, and that you guys are like.
Jessica is actually in medical school now.
Well, I'm in residency doing psychiatry, but my parents came from the Soviet Union a little before I was born. My mom's family is from Belarus, and there the Holocaust was very different. Like, they didn't go through the camps, and most of the people were just shot in one day. Like, there were these mass shootings, and they didn't have the same experiences. I know that my mom's grandma and, my mom's grandma and my mom's mom, they, in 1942, I know they escaped to Perm, somewhere in the east, and that's how they survived. But other people in the town were probably massacred. But I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so you're all inspirations. I can talk more, but I think everything needs to go.
Oh, you're gonna be a third-rate doctor because you really. You're tremendous success.
Tell us who you are, stand up, tell us. This one is very interesting, get ready.
Hi, my name is Tatiana. I was born and raised actually in Ukraine. And my brother was before the war raised in Ukraine. So I could actually confirm what Ina said, that Ukraine was gradually going to a better place. And what Russia wants to do is terrible. Both parents lived under communist Russia, and no one wants to.
Loud and clear for the ladies.
Nobody wants to repeat that lifestyle. Let's put that nicely. Even I remember as a child, I was born in Dnipropetrovsk and grew up in Dnipropetrovsk, so basically it's a western of Ukraine. During World War II was a lot of battles, so I remember first grade we had instructions. If you find something very interesting, looks like cool gun, don't touch. And unfortunately, some kids were either killed or lost extremities because no one knows, where all these weapons also are. For me, like what happened in February 24th, I'm like, how in the world it could happen again? It's like we have so much pain. We left so many people, even more than half a century, even now 70-something years, we still feel that pain after war. And who in the right mind would repeat that? But I guess.
Tatiana, maybe you could share with them our most recent story about
Yeah,
your brother.
my brother, so I came here in 2005. My brother left back in Ukraine. and he was part of Jewish community in Dnieper, then in Kiev,